last week found that 78% of Americans think we should extend the ACA tax credits, including significant majorities of Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. Why don't my colleagues on the other side of the aisle and my colleagues that aren't here over in the House, Republicans, why don't they see this as an opportunity to do something good, to come to the table and do something good? That's what this is about to me. I thought that's what we were elected to do. But instead, what do we see? According to Minnesota's health insurance marketplace, a 30-year-old in Mower County, that's one of our rural counties kind of near the Iowa border, earning $39,000 per year would see their premium increase from $77 per month this year to $225 a month for the same plan. Not extra bells and whistles, the same plan. A family of 3 in Roseau County, that's way up north, with an annual income of $106,000, this is a family of 3, would see their premium jump from $675 a month to $1,100 a month, an annual increase of more than $5,000. A 60-year-old married couple in Bemidji, earning $85,000 per year. This is the middle of our state, beautiful.
It tells a story, saying, quote, "I'm not going to discuss this with you.
Statutory balance Congress intended and Congress, in fact, created with the Congressional Review Act. When these resolutions of disapproval take effect, after they've been passed and signed into law by President Trump, the Bureau of Land Management will still have the necessary environmental analysis to issue new resource management plans that are consistent with the law and the clear intent of Congress. Plans that open access where it was previously closed, respect local voices that were previously ignored, and bring federal management back within its legal balance. That is how the process should work. That's how it's supposed to work. Under the law as written, it's how it does work. It's at least how it always should have worked, but didn't work under the Biden administration, like so many other things. Now, Republicans are defending the right of a free people here, the right of a free people to power their own future, to determine their own course. Democrats are still genuflecting before the altar of the Green New scam, clinging to their faith and their false hope that if only Americans grow poorer, the planet will somehow grow purer. And in that same spirit of self-righteous delusion, this week, Democrats are yet again bringing forth a measure to denounce President Trump for declaring an energy emergency. It's a gesture so unserious, it would be comical if it weren't so dangerous. At the very moment when the world is entering an energy race that will decide who commands the engines of artificial intelligence and all that go along with it, who manufactures the tools of war, and who will feed and defend their people, Democrats have instead chosen to strike a pose. They're congratulating themselves for denying the existence of the fire while standing in the smoke and holding the matches. Theirs are the politics of aesthetic virtue. Better to be cold and appear righteous than to be warm and competent. But the American people, fortunately, are not fools. They understand that we can no longer afford to pad the pockets of Democratic allies propping up unreliable industries that cannot, no matter how hard Democrats wish it were otherwise, they cannot keep the lights on, while punishing the workers and the communities that can, and will, if only we will allow it, without undue interference from the U.S. government. These resolutions to overturn the reckless Biden-era land plans are part of that larger defense. They would restore lawful management to public lands, honor the voices of those who live nearest to them and are therefore most directly affected by them, and keep faith with the law Congress enacted. Mr. President, nations that lose their memory soon lose their nerve. The same spirit that split the Rockies and bridged the Golden Gate cannot be reconciled with a bureaucracy that measures virtue by paralysis. America, in short, was not built by those who made idols of the land, but by those who worked it, and in so doing, ennobled both themselves and it. We cannot continue to bow to the Ashtoreth of climate alarmism and bow to the Moloch of eco-terrorism and pretend that that is going to work out well for America. Americans know better. Rewinding these management plans will not desecrate the environment, far from it, but they will deliver. They will deliver it from an orthodoxy that mistakes idleness for piety, reminding us that liberty, like the land itself, withers when left untouched. It's therefore with all the energy, enthusiasm that I'm capable of communicating that I invite my colleagues to do the right thing, to vote for these resolutions of disapproval, and to right the gross wrong that has been inflicted on the American people, particularly Americans in and around the states affected by these ill-designed, ill-conceived resource management plans. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
The senator from Montana.
Mr. President, today the Senate will vote to proceed to my joint resolution to congressionally disapprove and officially roll back President Biden's anti-coal rule in Montana. H.J. Res. 104 is supported by the entire
Hawley. Mr. Heinrich.
Invite my colleagues to do the right thing.
Feedback from now. Why is this in Congressman Downing?
Biden-era land plans are part of that larger defense by those in and around.
Taken today, appointing me in the Senate. And this resolution is supported by many Montanans, starting with the governor of Montana, Governor Greg Gianforte, the mayor of Colstrip, Montana, the Montana Coal Council, the Montana Electric Co-ops, Northwestern Energy, local counties, both of the affected coal mines, and many, many more, and I will tell you, many, many more coal miners. I want to explain quickly what we are doing here today. Today we will take the first step in overturning the Miles City Resource Management Plan amendment that prohibits any new coal leasing in eastern Montana. Let me be very clear, this resolution only overturns the anti-coal amendment that was issued by the Biden administration after the last election in the final days of their term. None of the actions taken today affect the underlying Miles City Resource Management Plan or how the BLM manages recreation, conservation, and other energy developments in the state. Future coal development will be managed under the existing resource management plan as it had for years before Biden slipped in at the last hour this amendment. Now, why is this important to Montana? The Biden amendment prohibits all new coal leasing across all of eastern Montana. Eastern Montana and Wyoming are home to the Powder River Basin. These are the largest coal reserves in the United States. Many who are watching, when you think about Montana, you think about our amazing fly fishing streams, our national parks, our beautiful mountains, our wilderness areas, the tremendous hunting and hiking opportunities we provide. But many don't know that Montana has more recoverable coal than any state in the United States. And think about this, the Biden administration prohibited new coal development in America's largest coal reserve. BLM's resource management plans are meant to be a bipartisan process, taking in feedback from people on the ground and implementing the multiple use mission of the BLM. But sadly, the Biden administration tried to pull a fast one. They took this process, flipped it on its face, and they disregarded the voices of Montana. Well, I can tell you here this afternoon, the voices of Montana are speaking loudly with a united Montana delegation both here in Washington as well as Montanans back home in the state, and we are going to right that wrong today. We're going to give Montana a voice in the process. Overturning this partisan rule will grow Montana energy jobs and help our rural communities. In fact, according to the Montana Coal Council, coal supports nearly 900 high-paying jobs in Montana and has provided $2.7 billion in federal, state, private, and tribal royalties. And in a letter from Montana's Governor, Greg Gianforte, he states this Biden rule amounts to a loss of $4.3 billion in future revenue to the state trust land beneficiaries, which includes K through 12 public education. This is a monumental moment for the state of Montana. I'm thrilled this is being considered today on the floor of the United States Senate, and I urge my colleagues to support Montana jobs, Montana communities, reliable and low-cost energy, and to vote yes on today's motion.
huge copays. And that was before Donald Trump and the Republicans decided to make the healthcare crisis so much worse. Democrats are fighting to reverse Republicans' giant healthcare cuts and lower costs for Americans. Right now, it is only the Republicans in Congress that stand in the way. Affordable Care Act tax credits help people afford their health care, and they are set to expire at the end of the year, and insurance companies are resetting their rates right now. We are barreling toward a tipping point for American families. If Congress does not act, nearly 22 million Americans will see their health insurance premiums more than double on average. Democrats want to lower those costs right now. Republicans are shutting down the entire government instead of coming to the table to help American families. An overwhelming majority of Americans want us to extend these tax credits so that insurance premiums don't go through the roof. Even most Trump supporters agree with us on this. Donald Trump himself just said he wants to make it better, and it is only Senate Republicans who are standing in the way. Senate Republicans have refused to even sit down and negotiate over health care cuts, even though thousands of their constituents will see their costs go way up. For example, in Alabama, about 447,000 Americans will see their insurance premiums skyrocket. In Alaska, about 24,000 Americans will see their insurance premiums skyrocket. In Arkansas, it's about 144,000 Americans. In Florida, it's 4.4 million Americans. In Idaho, it's 101,000 Americans. In Indiana, it's 290,000 Americans. In Iowa, it's 118,000 Americans. In Kansas, it's 182,000 Americans. In Kentucky, it's 77,000 Americans. In Louisiana, it's 276,000 Americans. In Maine, it's 54,000 Americans. In Mississippi, it's 320,000 Americans. In Missouri, it's 383,000 Americans. In Montana, it's 67,000 Americans. In North Carolina, it's 888,000 Americans. In North Dakota, it's 38,000 Americans. In Ohio, it's 514,000 Americans. In Oklahoma, it's 2
lanes. These are the demands that they put in to say, we will not reopen the government unless we get electric vehicles into HOV lanes, and additional money for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and carbon management expenditures. And oh, by the way, there was a $50 billion rural health care fund that Republicans passed in the One Big Beautiful Bill. They also want to get rid of that $50 billion rural health care fund, saying we need to wipe that out. Can I tell you, rural hospitals really need the help. $50 billion would really be a huge help for them. We have called that the moonshot to be able to bring rural health care up to the standards that they need to be across the country. They just wiped that out and included that in their "in other matters" section. To say, yes, we want to open up the government, but we also want to close down more rural hospitals at the same time. Listen, we have disagreements on things. It's not we're just different parties. We come from different states and different areas. We have different perspectives. Welcome to America. We have different opinions on things. That's what this body is supposed to be about. But when we have disagreements, we should be able to actually sit down like grown-ups and talk to each other and figure out how to be able to solve it.
For our service members, well, they run out in days. Reports already show there are signs of financial distress.
Hostage for last in the One Big
weeks saying that
we're 57. We just needed 60 votes. And literally this day and this time wouldn't happen. We need to solve this. And we can. We have solved a lot of difficult issues in the Senate. This is not too hard to solve. My friend and colleague, who is the ranking member on appropriations, has worked incredibly hard. Senator Murray has worked incredibly hard on appropriations for years, knows this process can be done well. But the last time we did appropriations in the time and in the order they should have been done was 1997. 1997. So let's fix our process. The entire country is staring at us thinking, can't you guys get this together? Yes, we can. We just have to agree not only to reopen the government, which should.
Wyoming is life-saving treatments, and the hard reality is people will die. People who otherwise would have sought the care they needed. To every Republican who thinks they can keep sitting on their hands and waiting this out, you need to understand this is not some distant crisis you can ignore. Premiums are being locked in right now. Letters are going out to families announcing shocking price increases this month. In Idaho, open enrollment actually starts next week. How is that not urgent? To every Republican who keeps trying to say, we can talk about this later, later is simply too late. And by the way, why wouldn't Republican leaders talk about this earlier? We've been asking to fix this for months and months and months. For all the talk of, oh, we can't discuss health care while government is shut down. Well, you didn't discuss it when government was open either. Where have you been? And where are you right now, for that matter? House Republicans are not even here. And they've not been here for 3 weeks. I cannot help but note the stark contrast between how little House Republicans seem to care about opening up the government and preventing massive health care hikes, and how much they cared about shoveling trillions in tax breaks at some of the richest people in the world earlier this year. Where is that urgency now? I mean, when the tax breaks for billionaires were set to expire in December, that was the same time as these health care credits expire. Republicans made that priority number one. You can bet they fast-tracked relief for the bigwigs and fat cats because, heaven forbid, billionaires like Trump
The senator from Arkansas.
I ask unanimous consent that, notwithstanding Rule 22, it be in order for the Majority Leader or his designee to make motions to proceed to H.J. Res. 104, H.J. Res. 105, and H.J. Res. 106, respectively, if the Senate companion measure has been discharged from committee, and for Senator Schiff or his designee to make a motion to discharge S.J. Res. 83.
Without objection.
I know of no further debate on the nominations.
If there's no further debate, the question is on the nomination on block. Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alstabrooks. Ms. Baldwin. Mr. Banks.
Aye.
Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Blackburn. Mr. Blumenthal. Ms. Blunt Rochester. Mr. Booker. Thank you. Mr. Bozeman. Mrs. Britt. Mr. Budd.
Ms. Collins.
You see TikTok. Sometimes it's through violence. Sometimes it's the occupation of the Parliament building. Sometimes it's the cancellation of elections. But normally, that's not how democracies wither and vanish. In countries that have lost healthy democracy, normally what happens is that over time, the regime, the party in power, just contracts the space for dissent, for speech, for political opposition, such that while elections still happen, the opposition party can never win. The rules get rigged, essentially, so that the party in power never, ever loses. That is the plan. That is what President Trump and the radicals around him are trying to do to America. I know that many of my colleagues aren't on board for this plan, but I worry that many of my colleagues refuse to see it in its totality because they deal with one outrage at a time. They justify one assault at a time without seeing the full scope of it. We aren't on the verge of an authoritarian takeover. We are in the middle of it. Now, it's not a fait accompli. It is not certain to be successful. But if we aren't clear-eyed about what is happening, then we have...
Ms. Hassan, no. Mr. Blumenthal, no. Mr. Fetterman, no. Mr. Cotton, aye.
See this weird muscle right here? This is the real reason you have eye bags and crow's feet. Then I fixed it in 5 minutes a day, and here's what happened. My friends keep asking if I got an eye.
And the FBI eventually got their wish in April 2022 with the opening of Arctic Frost. This was a political fishing expedition to get Trump at all costs, just like Crossfire Hurricane. And of course, it's a disgrace to the taxpayers. Whistleblowers have provided me with another document. This to it. Did the FBI throw its resources behind this matter just like it did again? About to give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please be seated and give us your opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley and Ranking Member Durbin, and every member of this committee. I'm grateful for the opportunity to testify in front of you today. First, please join me in remembering, as you said, Chairman Grassley, all the Jewish people who lost their lives in the October 7th attacks 2 years ago today. Also, please let's pray for all the hostages and the families of all of those individuals. They are a critical reminder of our central mission here at the Department of Justice, protecting the safety and security of the American people. That is why, even when the government is otherwise shut down because of the Democrats, the department's law enforcement officers and prosecutors are hard at work fighting crime, keeping our streets safe, and protecting you from the threats, foreign and domestic. When I was confirmed as the 87th Attorney General of the United States, I took office with two main goals: to end the weaponization of justice and return the department to its core mission of fighting violent crime. As to ending the weaponization of justice, we learned that former FBI secretly investigated you and your colleagues. Why? They wanted to take President Trump off the playing field. They were playing politics with law enforcement powers and will go down as a historic betrayal of public trust. This is the kind of conduct that shatters the American people's faith in our law enforcement system. We will work to earn that back every single day. We are returning to our core mission of fighting real crime. While there is more work to do, I believe in 8 short months, we have made.
And this gift clearly violates the statutory regime enacted by Congress. You've refused to answer a letter I sent to you 5 months ago, asking the legal rationale you relied on to advise President Trump to accept this unprecedented gift from your former legal client. Can you make a promise today that you will disclose that?
Disclose what, Ranking Member?
I assume there was a letter or some sort of statement from your office to the White House to advise them that you felt it was permissible?
First, to address my role with Qatar, as I addressed with you during my confirmation hearing, I disclosed it in my SJQ. In private practice, I worked for Qatar for anti-human trafficking for the World Cup. That was my only involvement, and I made that very clear, and I'm very proud of everything I've done with anti-human trafficking. Obviously, in preparing any advice for the president on a jet or anything else, we consult with the Office of Legal Counsel. The confidentiality applies to their input as well. And Chairman, if you would approve and vote to approve, as Chairman Grassley said, excuse me, Ranking Member, as Chairman Grassley said, my employees, we would answer your letters a lot faster, yet you're stalling them at every stop. And to go back to your previous question, your city has a murder rate 5 times higher than New York's. 571 homicides last year. If you were serious about protecting your people, you would be asking this administration for help. You're saying that we're coming into your state and your city. We're there to help make America safe and Illinois safe, whether or not you want to.
I believe cutting federal grant programs to law enforcement in my state and across the nation does not make us any safer, and you've done just that. You've supplanted that decision by sending in National Guard troops to California and other places. That is a situation where the governors have not asked for that help. If you truly wanted to do this on a bipartisan basis, you wouldn't defy a governor, you would work with them. I'm prepared to do that. I'm prepared to work with this administration. But cutting these grants to law enforcement does not make us any stronger as a nation or give us the tools we need to reduce crime in Chicago. Now, I'd just like to ask you, when it came to this Qatar situation, did you consult with the ethics office in the Department of Justice before making your decision on this gift of a jet?
This is the world's first reusable cotton swab. It can remove up to 10 times more earwax. Latest studies show that traditional cotton swabs are not good for your ears.
Chairman, I didn't gift a jet to anyone. My Office of Legal Counsel provides confidential advice to the President, to the White House, period. And you're conflating 2 issues. Cutting grants, I was very clear about what grants we've cut and what grants we haven't, only 7%. And if you have a grant in Illinois that you think that I've cut that is protecting law enforcement officers or your people, you personally call me and I will work with you to turn that grant back on. I think many of the Democrats here can tell you, I have worked with them to turn grants back on. There's an appeal process. Tell me a specific grant that I have turned off in Illinois that would help law enforcement, and I will work with you. But you have not done that.
Did you take a look?
The National Guard is on the way right now as we speak. Oh, by the way, so is Director Patel and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. You're sitting here grilling me, and they're on their way to Chicago to keep your state safe.
Madam Attorney General, it's my job to grill you. The investigation of your agency is part of my responsibility and this committee. You may not like the experience, but others have weathered the storm and answered questions in a respectful manner.
Can you tell me the grants,
Yes.
Ranking Member, please?
Take a look at the president's budget on HIDTA grants. What happens to it in his proposed budget?
I'd be glad to meet with you on the
It's
grants.
cut by 1/3 from $300 million to 196. That's one example of a grant that works, and your administration has suggested cutting it in the budget lies ahead. I want to ask you about items in a letter I sent you in July that you have not answered. In February, you made a public claim that the Epstein client list was, quote, sitting on my desk right now for review, end of quote. You then produced already public information and no client list at a major media event hosted at the White House. Attorney General Bondi, why did you publicly claim to have the Epstein client list waiting for your review and then produce nothing relevant to that claim?
Senator Durbin, if you listen to my entire clip on that, I said I had not reviewed it yet, that it was sitting on my desk along with the JFK files, the Martin Luther King files. And I said I had not yet reviewed it. And if you see our memo on Epstein, you will see, excuse me, our memo on Epstein clearly points out that there was no client list, our July 6th memo. You also didn't let me respond to the HIDTA question. The budget transfers $196 million for high-intensity drug trafficking areas to the Office of Justice Programs, OJP. The Justice Department will continue to administer those grants under OJP in 2026.
Going back to the Epstein files, according to another whistleblower who made a protected disclosure to my office, you pushed the FBI to review approximately 100,000 Epstein-related records on an arbitrarily short deadline in March, and the FBI was directed to flag any documents that mentioned President Trump. Nothing came of that review until July when DOJ and FBI released an unsigned memo stating, quote, there's no incriminating client list. Why was the July 7th memo unsigned?
The July 7th memo came from the FBI and the Department of Justice. Director Patel answered those questions very clear. And, you know, Senator Durbin, I find it very interesting that you refused repeated Republican requests to release the Epstein flight logs in 2023 and 2024. You fought that. Did you take money from Reid Hoffman, campaign donations, who was a huge Epstein friend? Why did you fight for years? Why did you fight to not disclose the flight logs, Senator Durbin?
I can tell you I did not refuse. One of the senators here wished to produce those logs, and I asked her to put it in writing, and she never did.
Yeah, I think Senator Blackburn would quarrel with you on that.
Well, I will quarrel with you as to Reid, somebody that you mentioned I never heard of.
Reid Hoffman.
So who gave the order to flag records related to President Trump?
To flag records for President Trump?
To flag any records which included his name.
I'm not going to discuss anything about that with you, Senator.
Eventually, you're going to have to answer for your conduct in this. You won't do it today, but eventually you will. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
I got
Mr. Chairman,
something here.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
Chairman, since Senator Durbin referred to me, I would really appreciate the opportunity to correct the record.
Proceed.
Because Senator Durbin knows I repeatedly asked for those flight logs. I brought up the subpoena. You even shut down the committee because you didn't want that, and you know I submitted that in writing, and you continue to misrepresent that, and I am not going to let that record stand.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Senator Durbin.
I just want to make it clear that the reason the committee business ended was that your side invoked the 2-hour rule. Point number 2 is I asked you if you wanted any documents like flight logs to put it in writing. You never did.
Yes, sir, I did. And your staff knows that I did.
No,
we'll submit once again
send me a copy
the information to you. We've done that several times, but we'll be happy to once again send it to you. I think your staff doesn't show that to you.
Well, as I started to say about the emolument clause and Democrats bringing that up in regard to Qatar, back in March of 2016, they didn't care anything about my bringing up the emolument clause in regard. I wrote to the Obama Justice Department. That letter was based on Secretary Clinton's 2009 to 2013 financial disclosures when she was Secretary of State. Those disclosures showed that her husband participated in at least 62 events with foreign states. Some of those were speaking events with connections to foreign governments, and some speaking events were financially supported by foreign governments. Two examples, Bill Clinton received hundreds of thousands of dollars for appearance sponsored by Middle Eastern governments. Bill Clinton also received $200,000 for a speech connected to the Chinese government. And I don't recall getting any help from my Democrat colleagues on that investigation. Senator Graham.
The knife was too good. That's the only explanation I have for what happened next. They thought I was a psycho. No, really. After placing my 7th order for the same knife, I got an email from the company. Is everything okay? And honestly, I don't blame them. Why the hell does someone buy 7 of the same knife? But if you've ever used a Mazzato, you understand. I bought the first one on a whim, just because it had a...
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. So I want to make sure I got this clear. If a Democrat or a Republican senator has a problem with a grant that's been canceled or reduced, you would be glad to talk to them.
Yes, Senator, and I have been doing that as well.
There have been Democratic members who called you,
They have spoken to my office, yes, Senator.
and you've tried to respond.
On either side of course, if it has anything to do with law
So-
enforcement or victims,
And that includes Senator Durbin. If he's got a problem, he can call you and you'll try to respond.
absolutely.
Thank you. How many illegal immigrants are in Chicago?
Ooh.
Does anybody know?
I do, countless. What we have seen since January 20th, Senator Graham, is a 1,000% increase in violent attacks against our ICE officers.
Right. But I just want to know, is there like 10 or 100,000? Does anybody know?
There have been multiple, and we have made multiple arrests, of course, involving violent gangs in Chicago,
Right.
throughout Illinois.
Right. So the only reason I ask that is Chicago is sanctuary city. Do they help ICE deal with illegal immigration, or they're sanctuary city? Do you know?
They are not cooperating, and I would ask that, I wish Senator Durbin would condemn the governor for not cooperating with our law enforcement officers.
The only reason I mention this, if you're a sanctuary city, any place in the country, you're making it difficult for the rest of us. Because word gets out, if you get to a certain city, maybe Chicago being one of them, that you're home free, and that just encourages more illegal immigration. Do you deal with that? Agree with that?
I do, Senator Graham, and can I add something to that?
Sure.
Please. One of our biggest wins was against the Sinaloa cartel, and that came in Chicago. The state of Illinois has a Trust Act, which prevents local law enforcement from cooperating with our federal immigration authorities. And that's what I was trying to talk to Senator Durbin about. On September 15th, our partners at ICE arrested an illegal alien from Mexico for beating a 21-year-old man to death. He had been imprisoned in Illinois prior to the murder and was released under Illinois' Trust Act. We filed multiple lawsuits in Illinois for sanctuary policies, specifically in-state tuition for illegal aliens and obstructing employers from verifying citizenship. You can't make this up. On September 5th, a federal grand jury in Chicago indicted a major Sinaloa cartel boss, narco-terrorism, guns, and drug charges. On July 11th, we announced a guilty plea for Ovidio Guzman Lopez. You may know him as the son of El Chapo, one of the worst narco-terrorists in the world. In the world,
In
Senators.
Chicago.
In Chicago. In Chicago. He entered a guilty
investigation of it and report to us what information they can give us, and I don't know how long that'll take them.
With respect, are you giving them a certain period of time?
I have not given them a certain period of time. I'll discuss that matter with my staff and see if that needs to be done.
Okay, if civil suits are filed against the perpetrators at the FBI, will that facilitate your investigation?
Well, what's the question again?
If the 8 senators who were spied upon sue the hell out of the Department of Justice and the perpetrators involved, will that facilitate their investigation? and or yours. I guess what I'm getting to is I don't understand why we don't have a separate hearing. I find this breathtaking.
Yeah. It's just been 24 hours since the FBI investigated on it. Please give me an opportunity to sort through all this.
Fair enough. I just don't want to wait 24 years to get an answer.
Yeah. We do have an active investigation going on through my staff. I want to make that very clear. Mr. Whitehouse, or Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Bondi, good morning.
Good morning.
What became of the $50,000 in cash that the FBI paid to Mr. Homan in a paper bag, evidently?
Senator, as Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche recently stated, the investigation of Mr. Homan was subjected to a full review by the FBI, agents, and DOJ prosecutors. They found no credible evidence of any wrongdoing.
And that was not my question.
Ever wondered what happens when legs like these almost suddenly become like this? Cases like this are practically textbook example of people not taking preventative steps against edema. It's always creeping in, but with these insoles, edema won't catch you.
Meet Acusoli, a breakthrough in foot comfort technology that fits any type of shoe and protects you from foot-related issues like plantar fasciitis and edema in 9 unique ways.
My question was, what became of the $50,000 in cash that the FBI delivered, evidently in a paper bag, to Mr. Homan?
Senator, I'd look at your facts.
Are you saying that they did not deliver $50,000 in cash to Mr. Homan?
Senator, as recently stated, the investigation of Mr. Homan was subjected to a full review
different question.
by the FBI agents,
That's a
by
different
Department
question.
of Justice prosecutors. They found no evidence of wrongdoing.
That's a different question. What became of the $50,000? Did the FBI get it back?
Mr. Whitehouse, excuse me, Senator Whitehouse, you're welcome to talk to the FBI.
The report to you, can't you answer this question?
Senator Whitehouse, you're welcome to discuss this with Director Patel.
Did Homan keep the $50,000?
As Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche recently stated, the investigation of Mr.
Never mind.
Homan
I can
was
see I'm not going to get a straight
full
answer from you to
review
a very simple
by
question.
the FBI agents and the DOJ.
Do
They
you
found
know-
no credible evidence of wrongdoing. You know, you're very concerned about money and people taking money, and
Do
you
you
rail
know-
against
wait a
dark
second,
money.
wait a second, wait a
Yet you
second,
work with dark
wait a
money
second.
groups all the time, Senator
Wait a
Whitehouse.
second. Did you know whether or not in that investigation they looked at whether the $50,000 payment to Mr. Homan was declared by him on his tax returns?
Senator, I would be more concerned if I were you when you talk about corruption and money that when you pushed for legislation that would subsidize your wife's company.
The questions here are actually pretty specific. So having you respond with completely irrelevant far-right internet talking points really is not very helpful here. I'd like, Mr. Chairman, you generally like to have us be able to get answers to know, and we'll follow up with the QFR. And to the extent Patel wants to answer, that would be great as well. What happened to the $50,000? Did Homan keep it? Did the FBI get it back? If he kept it, did he put it on his tax returns? Pretty simple questions. Homan was the same guy who said there was a deal with Eric Adams. He said, if Adams doesn't come through, I'll be back. I'll be in his office, up his butt, saying, where the hell is the agreement we came to? Which brings us to the OPR investigation of prosecutorial misconduct by Emil Bovee, because he was also involved in that transaction.
Yeah.
what became of the OPR investigation of prosecutorial misconduct by Emil Bovee?
Yeah, Senator Whitehouse, to correct you for one moment, that would be the Honorable Judge Emil J. Bovee III to you.
Not at the time of this. He was an employee of the Department of Justice. And what became of the OPR investigation?
It's
into
all
his
pending litigation,
misconduct?
Senator. I can't discuss pending litigation nor personnel matters.
OPR customarily publicly says when there's an investigation, and at the end of it, they provide a summary. Why can't you say whether there's an OPR investigation and whether, if it's concluded, there's a summary?
Senator, I'm not going to discuss personnel matters.
Even public ones.
Senator, I'm not going to discuss personnel matters.
So, Kash Patel told this committee that his grand jury testimony after immunization, after
Groups to California and other places. That is a situation where the governors have not asked for that help. If you truly wanted to do this on a bipartisan basis, you wouldn't defy a governor, you would work with them. I'm prepared to do that. I'm prepared to work with this administration. But cutting these grants to law enforcement does not make us any stronger as a nation or give us the tools we need to reduce crime in Chicago. Now, I'd just like to ask you, when it came to this Cutter situation, did you consult with the ethics office in the Department of Justice before making your decision on this gift of a jet?
Chairman, I didn't gift a jet to anyone. My Office of Legal Counsel provides confidential advice to the President, to the White House, period. And you're conflating two issues. Cutting grants, I was very clear about what grants we've cut and what grants we haven't, only 7%. And if you have a grant in Illinois that you think that I've cut that is not protected, that is protected,
whether there's
It takes only 3 seconds to cut a steel plate. Weld a loose railing in 2 seconds.
an OPR investigation and whether, if it's concluded, there's a summary.
Senator, I'm not going to discuss personnel matters.
Even public ones.
Senator, I'm not going to discuss personnel matters.
So, Kash Patel told this committee that his grand jury testimony after immunization, after initially pleading the Fifth, was, and I quote, sealed by the Department of Justice. How and when and why was his testimony sealed, and by whom?
Senator, I'm not going to discuss any testimony, especially testimony that could be sealed with you.
No, the question is, was it or was it not sealed?
Senator, I'm not going to discuss that with you.
Well, he also said that he worked with the Department of Justice to have his transcript released publicly. How and when was his transcript released? Presumably, if he released it publicly, that's something you can discuss because it's public.
Well, Senator, I believe you discussed that with Director Patel.
And I'm asking you because he said the Department of Justice made this decision and you run the Department of Justice.
I would refer that to Director Patel.
Even though you run the Department of Justice and he testified that the Department of Justice released his transcript publicly.
If it is released publicly, we will get you a copy, Senator, gladly.
If being a rather important word there, when your FBI director testified that that was a fact. Treasury compiles suspicious activity reports, referred to often as SARS, that DOJ receives automatically. Hundreds related to accounts of Jeffrey Epstein. How many of those Treasury SARS did you or Director Patel investigate?
Senator, I'm not sure if you're concerned because you took money, I believe, did you, from Reid Hoffman, one of Epstein's closest confidants, not only once but twice in 2018 and 2024, if that's correct. But, Senator, did you ask Merrick Garland any of this? over the last 4 years when he sat before you?
Why
This
don't
investigation
I
has been
ask
going
you?
on. This investigation was closed. Did you ask Alex
When
Acosta
you
that?
and Patel came to office, you said you would look into this. There were hundreds of suspicious activity reports. Some people would deduce from the fact that they are called suspicious activity reports that there might be suspicious activity. And yet you seem to have looked at 0 of those suspicious activity reports involving Jeffrey Epstein accounts. Let me ask you something else. There's been public reporting that Jeffrey Epstein showed people photos of President Trump with half-naked young women. Do you know if the FBI found those photographs in their search of Jeffrey Epstein's safe or premises or otherwise? Have you seen any such thing?
You know, Senator Whitehouse, you sit here and make salacious remarks, once again trying to slander President Trump left and right, when you're the one who was taking money from one of Epstein's closest confidants, I believe, I could be wrong, correct me, Reid Hoffman, who was with Jeffrey Epstein on multiple occasions. And the senator sitting right next to you tried to block the flight logs from being released. Yet you're grilling me on President Trump and some.
This tiny muscle is the reason behind eye bags and crow's feet. Fix it by doing this for 5 minutes. My friends keep asking if I got an eye lift, because last month I looked like that. Now I look like this, but not from surgery, creams, or serums. It's this weird 5-minute hack that 127,000 women swear by, because it erases eye bags, dark circles, and crow's feet in just 21 days. I actually saw it on a video that went viral on TikTok, and after doing it every night before bed, my eyes finally.
Photograph with Epstein? Come on.
The question is, did the FBI find those photographs that have been discussed publicly by a witness who claimed Jeffrey Epstein showed them to him? You don't know anything about that? Okay. Here's what well, no, we cut to something else. The Marshal Service is supposed to protect our federal judges. I have asked repeatedly for the Marshal Service to let me know if they are investigating or being inhibited from investigating whether or not there is orchestration of threats against federal judges, whether under either conspiracy laws or racketeering enterprise laws or aiding and abetting laws, whatever. But as you know, there's the person who says the threat, and then there may very well be somebody orchestrating the threat behind them. Is the Marshal Service allowed to investigate orchestration of threats, and do you know if they've taken one step to do so?
May I answer the question, Chairman Grassley? The time has expired.
I think it's the convention of the committee that if I've started my question in my time, you may answer the question.
I was asking the chairman.
Okay, before I go to Cornyn.
She wants to answer the question, Chairman.
Oh, please go ahead. I thought you said you didn't want to answer it. I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry.
Thank you. Senator Whitehouse, I would be happy to sit down with you regarding any threat to any federal judge in this country. We take threats very seriously. I will set a meeting with you, with Director Seralta of the U.S. Marshals, and I will be there. And we will talk about any threats on federal judges,
including
who
orchestration.
threatened them or who orchestrated them.
Bingo. Thank you.
Okay. Before Cornyn speaks, I get kind of amused about my Democratic colleagues bringing up Treasury suspicious activity reports regarding Epstein. When Senator Johnson and I issued our Biden family reports in 2020, we used information from these very same type of documents. And you know what? We were criticized by our Democratic colleagues for doing so, and for years they ignored the evidence of the Biden family criminality. I don't think my colleagues can have it both ways. Senator Cornyn.
General Bondi, 6 out of 10 Americans say they live from paycheck to paycheck. And I'm sure that includes a lot of federal employees, Border Patrol, FBI agents, people who support them, frontline prosecutors. Do you find it somewhat inconsistent that our Democratic colleagues claim to support law enforcement and the rule of law, but yet they vote to deny those same individuals the pay which they've earned?
Yes, Senators, our law enforcement agencies, DEA, ATF, FBI, U.S. Marshals, and all the other federal agencies, Homeland Security, Treasury, all the agencies, all of my federal prosecutors, all of our employees are working tirelessly, national security, around the clock to keep this country safe and to keep this world safe. Yet, the Democrats voted to shut the government down, and they are out there working without a paycheck, with families at home, risking their lives every single day. Thank you for pointing that comment.
Do you want to know where to invest $1,000 right now? Well, forget about AI, quantum computing.
On whether we have or have not, or do not have pending investigations.
Time has
Senator
expired.
Klobuchar.
Senator Lee, you're recognized.
Attorney General Bondi, thank you for being here today, and thanks for your service as Attorney General of the United States. I want to start by thanking you for acknowledging a moment ago the importance of protecting the rights of the law-abiding. In a country where there are hundreds of millions of guns, one of the most alarming, not to mention unconstitutional things the government could do is to disarm the law-abiding. It would be unfair, it would be fatal to many, it would be contrary to our constitutional system. And I appreciate you standing up for that. I'm also grateful for you standing up for Gail Slater, the Assistant Attorney General over the Antitrust Division. I have full confidence in her, and I can tell you do as well. More broadly, Attorney General Bondi, through your leadership, you've returned the Department of Justice to its core mission. And its core mission, of course, involves protecting the American people, upholding the law, upholding the Constitution, and making sure that justice in our system is applied even-handedly, fairly, consistently, as the law requires, without fear, favor, or political bias making those decisions. With you as Attorney General at the helm of this great department, the Department of Justice has strengthened its efforts to secure our borders against what has been an unprecedented influx of illegal immigration. It's disrupted sophisticated networks of criminals, including people who profit immensely and have profited.
Literally defunding the police. And I have some concerns about how DOJ is putting at risk public safety by assigning thousands of agents and prosecutors away from drugs, firearms, corruption, violent crime to help ICE arrest people without criminal records. You've indicated a willingness to review any grant that a member of Congress has concerns about, and noted a number of them have been restored on appeal. And I appreciate that willingness to admit some misjudgments or mistakes in some of the many grants that were canceled. But can you assure us this process is going to be fixed going forward so better decisions are made at the start and not just after appeals? And can you assure us that we are not leaving doors wide open for crime and criminality in our communities and over-focusing on arrest and deportation of those without criminal records?
Yes, Senator, thank you for that question. And as I said earlier, we are reviewing all the grants, and I believe we have, turned some back on for senators who have called. It doesn't matter what state you're from. If it's a law enforcement grant, if it's protecting victims, let us know and we will work with you. And I'm not sure if we have done any in your state yet, but I would be happy to work with you on that. What I can tell you is there have been, out of the 5,800 discretionary grants that were reviewed, only 376 around the country, 7% were terminated. 225 of the grant recipients have appealed that termination. And so far, we've turned back on 18 of those. 17 appeals have been denied, and the rest are being actively reviewed. If any of you know of any of those that you believe should call me, should be turned back on, call me. We don't want to jeopardize
I will be
anything
calling
that's
you.
hurting. Please do. And Senator, to go to what you said about the FBI and my federal agencies and being pulled to work on immigration cases, they're working hand in hand because we believe that, you know, we have ICE officers out there, as we just discussed. I don't want to repeat that, who are being harmed. We're going to work with them, and I've directed all of my law enforcement agencies to work with ICE to make sure they're safe in Chicago, to make sure they're safe in Memphis, to make sure they're safe right here in Washington, D.C., but also at President Trump's direction. We are not stopping the core function of what we're doing, and that is fighting violent crime. And I think Director Patel made that very clear with all of the arrests that our FBI have been making on violent criminals. And, you know, there's so much that we can't talk about here, but if any of you are on the Intel Committee, you know we are fighting terrorists around this country every single day. Our lawyers are shut down right now. They're not getting paid, but crime is not stopping. They are working around the clock to not only keep our country safe, Senator, but to keep our world safe. And they
Madam
will
Attorney
continue
General,
to
I
do
think
that.
all of us hate that there's a shutdown and its impact on the federal workforce, and are working to find a way out of this shutdown, but one that will also restore cuts to health care. We could spend a lot of time on that, but let's focus on, if I could, two more questions related to your service.
Here's why your knee pain keeps coming back, and the easiest way to fix it without pills, shots, or surgery. I'm going to show you something about your knee that most doctors never explain, and it could save you from years of agony. Look closely at this knee model. Your kneecap doesn't work like a simple hinge. It rides in a precise C-shaped track called the trochlear groove. This C-shaped track is perfectly engineered to guide
Biden administration against Republicans. Senator Hawley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, good to see you. Welcome. I've been listening closely in this hearing, and I've heard over and over from my Democrat colleagues concerns about targeting political enemies, and they've accused you of all manner of things and the current president. I've also heard them said, and I just wrote it down because I wanted to be sure I heard it correctly. I've heard them say that Joe Biden never targeted his political enemies. Joe Biden never directed his attorney general to target his political opponents. That's interesting, because I could have sworn that yesterday we learned that the FBI tapped my phone. Let's look at it. We've got a list. Tapped my phone, tapped Lindsey Graham's phone, tapped Marsha Blackburn's phone, tapped 5 other phones of United States senators. Gee, it sure looks like targeting political opponents to me, and yet I haven't heard a word from that side of the dais about any concern whatsoever. We've got nothing but concerns today, but no concern at all for a Justice Department that is tapping the phones of sitting United States senators because who knows why. They don't like them. They're members of the opposition party. They're Republicans. They're conservatives. You've seen this document, Attorney General Bondi. What was going on here? Who ordered this? Who ordered the tapping of the phones of United States senators?
Senator Hawley, I cannot discuss the details of that right now for very good reason.
You're going to do a thorough investigation into this, I trust. Is that correct?
We will be looking at all aspects of this, and I have talked to Director Patel at length about
And
this.
you're going to figure out who was involved in this, who signed off on it, who knew about it. You're going to get to the bottom of all of it. Is it correct?
Yes, and I've spoken to Director Patel about it, and he is committed to doing this.
Well, I can tell you, we already know many of the details. We already know that this was ordered by the special prosecutor, Jack Smith, who reported directly to the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland. And we know that Jack Smith was on his witch hunt because he was directed to do so by the President of the United States, Joe Biden. Let's just remember. Let's take a walk down memory lane. April 2nd, 2022, the New York Times. Garland faces growing pressure. The Times says as recently as late last year, that would have been 2021, Mr.